This is AM Agenda. Thanks very much for your company this morning. Joining me now, Liberal MP Kelly O'Dwyer. She's in our Sydney CBD studio, and here in the Canberra studio, Labor MP Gai Brodtmann. Thanks both for your time. Gai, first to you, on the economy, given the patchy growth, does the government need to be a bit cautious not to claim it's a miracle economy, given a lot of people aren't feeling it?
Well, it is a pretty spectacular figure, the figures from yesterday, any time in the world's economy, but particularly at the moment it's extraordinary. These figures are we haven't had these figures since 2007. I think that Australians need to be proud and optimistic about these figures, and it just puts a lie to the naysaying that's been coming from the coalition.
And you obviously...
The campaign, the pessimistic
campaign. In that you're talking about the carbon tax as well, alluding to that.
Well, not just that, but also just talking the economy down the whole time. They have never got a good word for it.
OK, let's go to Kelly O'Dwyer now. As the Shadow Treasurer said yesterday, Kelly, the numbers are the numbers. They're very good. At what point does the government get some credit for its stewardship?
Well, look, Kieran, it's fair to say it's a good number and we welcome the figure. But, you know, when you go back to the previous government, you know, we expected and had these figures day in, day out. This government, of course, you know, it's an unusual figure for them, and that's why Wayne Swan thinks all his Christmases have come at once. But his gloating and this idea that somehow people have never had it so good is one that doesn't sit well with the Australian people. We only need to look at the manufacturing industry, for instance. You only need to look at outputs that have fallen 6 of the last 8 quarters, and you know that it's a very difficult time for manufacturing, and this is the time when the government is looking to introduce the world's biggest carbon tax.
Kelly, but when it comes to the carbon tax, doesn't this give the government a bit more scope to move? If we're talking about a growth rate of 4.3% across the year, that provide some sort of buffer, whether or not you think it's the right policy or not. It's hardly going to be a stronger time in terms of the broader economic outlook.
Well, I wouldn't agree with you on that, Kieran. I mean, you only, as I said, need to look at the manufacturing figures to realise that we have real problems in our manufacturing industry. You only need to look at the variable growth figures between Western Australia, Queensland and Victoria to know that we've got a two-speed economy. The idea that somehow we've never had it so good, and that Wayne Swan seems to articulate this idea with the gloating that he did yesterday, it doesn't sit well with people, and it's not the experience that people are feeling, whether they're small shop owners or whether they're families struggling with the cost of living.
When it comes to the GDP figures, Gai, they are a rear view look at the economy, aren't they? So the government does face that uncertainty in China, question marks over growth rates there, and in Europe as well. So you wouldn't really want to be popping the champagne just yet, given all the dark clouds on the horizon, as Tony Abbott describes it.
Yeah, but I think that let's just take stock of what's actually happened. These are spectacular results in the current economic climate, and so Australians should be proud, they should be optimistic about these results, and there's growth forecasts for the future, and we're looking at 1.6 million jobs by 2020, so there is cause for optimism. We should be proud of what's been achieved so far. We should be proud of these figures.
One of the areas where people are feeling it in cost of living is childcare. A roundtable today that the Prime Minister's convening. Is this just another talk fest?
No, Labor is committed to actually improving affordability in childcare. Since we've been in government, we've introduced a range of measures to do that. We've increased the childcare rebate from 30% to 50%, and also the percentage of disposable income that is spent now on childcare has actually halved. So we are strongly committed to improving the affordability of childcare, and that's what these discussions are about today.
The Prime Minister is attending them as well, Kelly, so she's obviously elevating this issue to one that she's taking seriously as well, attending this roundtable with industry figures and others.
Well, Kieran, it's very clear there's a crisis in childcare, and this is something that we've been pointing out for the last 18 months. It's something that parents have been telling us. It's been something that parents have been telling the government. But it's not been until the union bosses said to the government, you need to convene a meeting to discuss this issue, that they've finally responded. And let's just have a look at some of the facts here. The Minister for Childcare, before she brought in these new regulations, said that the impact of the new regulations on childcare costs was going to be in 2011 2011, 57 cents a week. We know that it's now $22 a day. It's gone up by, a much, much higher figure. And, some childcare centres are telling us that parents are simply dropping out. And if they're dropping out of sending their children to childcare, a lot of women, and women in particular, are probably dropping out of the workforce, which goes to workforce participation, which goes to our economy. I mean, this is a crisis. It's a crisis of the government's own making. The childcare rebate has actually been dropped from $8,179 to $7,500, and they've actually frozen the rebate. And they're now talking about taking away choice from parents, taking away the money from parents, and sending it straight to childcare centres directly. I mean, this whole thing is a complete debacle, but it's one that the government has created.
Well, you've heard those criticisms. Should the government rethink the freezing of the rebate for one?
Well, I just want to go back to Kelly's point about the regulation. I mean, the improvements in the framework and in the training for childcare workers is actually designed to improve childcare. Every parent I know who sends their child to childcare is keen for them to have the best quality childcare. And what Kelly's suggesting is that we don't improve the regulation, that we don't improve the quality of childcare for all Australians. I mean, what's her issue there?
But the problem is, I suppose, is the access to it then.
Well, the access has improved in terms of the fact that we've improved the rebate from 30 to 50%, and as I said before, the percentage of disposable income, of family disposable income that's being spent on childcare has actually halved.
What about when you're talking about regulations, though? That puts a strain on the labour force, and we're seeing hundreds withdraw from that sector by the week almost.
Well, all the childcare workers I speak to have actually really embraced this whole improvement in the professionalisation of their careers, and they're really enjoying the fact that they now have to get Cert 1s and Cert 3s and a range of other mechanisms to improve their qualifications and improve the quality of childcare. I mean, we are committed to the affordability of childcare, and that's what the discussions are about today.
Okay, I want to look at one other issue before we go today. It's a bizarre story. The Thomson matter's taken another twist. A former prostitute recanting her story that she'd slept with an embattled Labor MP. She was on the 7 Network last night.
The fact that it was so long ago now that after thinking about it for a really long time, how can I be 100% sure it was him? I used to have a lot of clients that fitted that description. So it's just a really terrible case of mistaken identity. And it's horrible for Craig Thomson, and I feel terrible for him.
Kelly O'Dwyer, what have you made of this latest dramatic twist in the Thomson saga? How will that be received in the court of public opinion, do you think?
Well, look, I don't know how it's going to be received, Kieran, and it is an ongoing saga, but there are a couple of important facts, and the first is, of course, that there has been no dispute over Fair Work's findings that HSU union money has been misused, and a very serious amount of that. You know, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and potentially much higher than that when you look at the different interplay of union contracts that have gone to family members and other associated people within the union movement. The Prime Minister herself actually had to acknowledge that something was seriously wrong here, and she said that there was a line in the sand and that Craig Thomson could no longer be part of her caucus. So, I mean, the issue really, it's one for the government. They're still relying on his vote. They're relying on his vote in the House of Reps Standing Committee on Economics. They're relying on his vote on the floor of the Parliament. It's an issue for the Prime Minister.
And Gai, the fact remains as well that the Fair Work Australia report, 1,100 pages in length, that those allegations are yet to be tested in the court of law. So this really doesn't change much, does it, apart from the theatre of this saga?
This has become a circus. This is ridiculous. And we just need to go back to the original principle of the fact that this man is entitled to the presumption of innocence. What we're seeing at the moment is a lynch mob. What we're seeing at the moment is akin, I think, to throwing a rope over a tree.
Okay, so in terms of the broader answering of the allegations, as the government has said for some time now, needs to be managed by a court of law.
Absolutely, and the man should be entitled to the presumption of innocence.
In terms of the reporting of it, would you call on all and sundry just to cease with coverage of it, other than those legal proceedings?
Well, it just keeps ratcheting up in terms of the ridiculous, doesn't it? And what we've seen with overnight is that. I mean, it has become a circus.
Okay. Gai Brodtmann and Kelly O'Dwyer, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you both. We're out of time.
Kieran, thanks, Gai.
Thank you
Thanks,
both.
Kelly.
And that's all for AIM Agenda. Thank you for your company. We'll see you soon.